Moi everyone and welcome to Finnish Play. As you might know, I'm from the Turku region, and in Turku we sometimes say Pist, siit, viis, piispist, which might not mean anything for the rest of Finland, but in Turku area we have this pastry called piispanmunkki that is known by a different name altogether elsewhere in Finland. A piispanmunkki is a fried donut basically that is sometimes filled with jam, raspberry, and then most importantly it has this pinkish frosting on top. It is called piispanmunkki because the pinkish frosting kind of resembles the hat that the bishop wears. And of course, Turku with its cathedral is the seat of the Bishop of Finland, so therefore there's a whole pastry named after him. Elsewhere in Finland, it's known as Berliinimunkki or Berliner, and of course we're all familiar with that sentence, Ich bin ein Berliner. So of course, coffee culture is very important in Finland. Coffee breaks are legally mandated. So a lot of times Finns like to have a little bit of sweet bun or something like that with coffee. So I have here 3 examples of sweet buns that Finns might have. Of course, there's the aforementioned piispanmunkki, piispis. I also have a regular sugar donut here, basically a yeast donut that has been covered in sugar. And then lastly, but by no means least, I have here a sweet bun that has a black frosting. But what exactly is this black frosting? Well, you're just going to have to find out. So join me and I'll show you exactly how to make these buns and what is that black frosting. So we're going to start by making our basic sweet bun or pulla dough. I have here 470 grams of all-purpose flour. The actual amount of flour that you need may vary a little bit even from batch to batch. Also, I have here 250 milliliters of whole milk, 100 grams of melted butter. Then I have 16 grams of sugar. I have 5 grams of salt and a tablespoon of cardamom powder. Of course, Finns love cardamom. And then I have here 13 grams of yeast. That's a lot of yeast, but again, this is a very heavy enriched dough. I've definitely made the mistake of not putting enough yeast in my pulla dough, and it kind of comes out very dense and chewy, so we want to avoid that. So first, we're just gonna add the milk, warm milk, and the sugar, the yeast, and I'm just gonna mix this up to bloom it. After a couple minutes, bubbles should start appearing in the milk, so we know our yeast is good to go. Okay, the milk is starting to get frothy and it's a little bubbly, so we're gonna add the salt. And I'm gonna start adding the flour a little bit at a time and just keep whisking it. And also I'll add the cardamom. Now that about half my flour is in, it's starting to be a little too heavy to whisk. So I'm gonna switch over to the machine. I have here my dough hook. And now I'm just gonna add a little bit more flour. And I'm gonna start mixing. Once this flour is in, I'm gonna add my butter and then gonna add the rest of my flour. At the very end, I'm just going to be a little careful seeing if I'm adding too much flour into it, just trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I left out about this much, maybe about a quarter of a cup of flour or something like that. So I'm going to keep kneading this dough for about 10 minutes. And after that, I'm going to cover it and let it rise, let it proof for 30 minutes, maybe even longer, until it's doubled in size. All right, our dough has risen beautifully. So now I'm going to make 12 buns out of this. I'm going to take the dough out of the bowl, roll this into a log, and then just split it into 12 pieces. So I'm trying to make this log about equal width throughout. Notice I'm not using any additional bench flour here. If you can avoid it, do that. So you can roll them into nice round buns. And once I've rolled these into buns, they're going to proof again until they are about doubled in size. And after that, we are going to fry them. My buns have now risen. They're about doubled in size. So I'm going to fry them. I'm going to fry them in coconut oil. This is refined coconut oil. So it's not going to make them taste really coconutty, but it gives nice results. You could use any other kind of frying oil. You could use shortening, for example. But I feel like the coconut oil actually works really well. I'm going to fry them until they're basically golden brown, and then I'm going to put them on my sheet over here that I put these racks on so they can just drain and cool down before we actually frost them. I'm frying these at 350 Fahrenheit, about 175 Celsius. Now the buns have been fried. They've been cooling down for a few minutes, but let's see. Yeah, they're starting to be cool enough to handle with bare hands. Yeah, that's all right. Especially the first ones. So I'm gonna prep the filling. I'm just gonna use a syringe like this. I have here just plain raspberry preserves. I have here 300 mils of powdered sugar. That's about a cup and just a little over, a cup and a quarter, plus then 2 tablespoons of water. So I'm gonna pour the water in here, plus then a couple drops of red food color. You only need literally a couple drops. This stuff is very potent. And already you can see it got on my hand, so it's gonna stain for the rest of the day. Now we're just going to mix this together. You can't do this too much in advance because it's going to start to harden up. I think it could still use, actually no, the color is good. I was going to say it could use a little bit more red color, but no. This kind of pinkish color, that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to take my syringe and just go about halfway and just fill a little bit of raspberry filling in each one. Not a whole lot because it's gonna ooze out of the hole. So we kind of want to avoid that. So these buns have the filling. So I am going to just dip them in my frosting. If the buns are too warm, it's going to make the frosting kind of thin. And also, it doesn't matter if your frosting gets a little bit uneven because as it sits over here, it's going to even out. You could add some flavoring to this frosting. Sometimes people add things like maybe like a little lime juice just to add a little bit of tartness. So here comes the fun part. I have another bowl here with powdered sugar, the same amount, about 1.25 cups, 2 tablespoons of plain water. And then I have here ammonium chloride. And we're going to add about a tablespoon of ammonium chloride. If you know what ammonium chloride is, that is, of course, the main ingredient in salmiakki, salty licorice. I also have a teaspoon of anise extract and some black food coloring. The water, anise extract, and a little bit of black food color. And now we'll mix this again. This is, of course, going to be a salty licorice frosting for the bun. I can already smell the anise extract. Actually is what it kind of makes it smell like salmiakki. All I got to do is just dip in my bun into this frosting. And I will just roll these in just plain sugar like this. So now our sweet buns are ready. Let me just pick a couple over here. So let's go ahead and try them out. First, the standard piispanmunkki. I don't think it's really necessary to flavor the frosting. Most oftentimes it is not flavored, so it kind of adds a little bit of sweetness to it. Not that it necessarily needs more sweetness, but sometimes Finnish pastries may be a little bit on the less sweet side, so it is kind of nice addition in there. I probably could have added a little bit more jam inside because I didn't get any of that on the first bite. Also, I do not taste the coconut at all, so in that sense, the refined coconut oil is a perfect oil to use for frying the buns. All right, let's try the salty licorice. I can smell the anise really strongly. Let's see how it tastes like. Has that saltiness and the sweet. It's a little messy. I got some black coloring on my fingers, that's all right. And then the anise. It is just such an interesting combination. You wouldn't think that it works the way it does. But it totally does. It's difficult to, if you've never tried salmiakki, you don't really know the Finns' obsession with salmiakki. But even if you're not really into salmiakki that much, you might be able to appreciate the salty and sweet combo that it has. And it's basically, first when you bite into it, you get that burst of anise, really, and you get that saltiness forward, and then you get that sweetness of the bun. And overall, it is a really delicious bun. So I hope you're going to try to make this yourself. And if you do, please let me know, how did it turn out? How did you like it? Have you ever had salty licorice bun, maybe when you were in Finland? Let me know how it was. And as always, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of these videos. And I'll see you next time on Finish Your Plate.